We go. What's up, everybody? We got Don, you got your boy Brad as well, and we got probably the second biggest day of earnings today. Welcome to the Power Zone, aka Own the Chaos. Also over there, the Don Fran Show. We're still in the process of getting everything merged over, so we hope that you guys find your way over to the Power Zone. That's where Don and I are both going to be streaming from at some point. We're still figuring out when that actually is going to be, but it is happening. So make sure that you're making your way over. And man, yeah, we got some big stocks that are going to be reporting earnings today. Apple, Amazon, Meta platforms. Yesterday we had the Fed do their thing, and so it's been a bit of a week. And I talked about this on Friday. Or sorry, not Friday. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit on Thursday and then a little bit on Tuesday as well. I mentioned that, I think that we are starting to get to a point to where we could see a decent sized correction in the S&P, even though I still feel good about how we're going to shake out for the entire year. Just from a macro perspective, I don't think there's anything to worry about. Am I expecting some sort of 25% move that we saw yesterday? No. Last year, no, but I think that we could still have a solid green year this year. It's just not going to be in a straight line. I think that over the next, 2 to 3 months, we could see some volatility, some moves to the downside. I think we could see a decent correction, and then gives us an opportunity to buy on the dip on a lot of things. And second half of the year could prove to be pretty good, so long as everything goes the way that it should. So looking at this, I'm actually just pulled up the SPY. And Don, I don't know if you just want to go ahead and pull up your chart, because right now
me.
It keeps disconnecting me. Okay.
Yeah, I just exited mine. I don't know what's going on with it.
Yeah, it's been weird. So bear with us, guys. Hopefully there isn't any issues here. But that being said, you can see the SPY right now. Yesterday I had a pretty down day on the reaction to the Fed. I think a lot of people were expecting the Fed to talk about rate cuts, and that didn't happen. I don't think it should happen. I think that with inflation coming down, I don't know if there's any reason why there should be any sort of talk of rate cuts. Maybe there will be later in this year. Who knows? But so far, the Fed said, hey, things are working. We're not going to change anything right now. And so pretty a negative reaction to that yesterday, but seems to be recovering just fine today. Don, the big news for me was that Ferrari popped. Do you have any idea why?
What's up with automotive in general?
So I don't know about automotive in general, but like with Ferrari. And so just so you guys know, Ferrari itself this is the auto manufacturer. A lot of people were thinking that this is the race company, and they are connected. But really, the big reason this jumped up was because Lewis Hamilton is going to be leaving Mercedes race team, which is a huge deal. Lewis Hamilton, greatest racer of all time, in my opinion, and by championships, that's just a fact. He is leaving Mercedes for Ferrari, and this is a huge deal. And this is why Ferrari is actually bouncing today, or having a huge move today. It's up 12.5%, was up as much as 16% on the day. This is a stock that's already gone bananas in 2023, and with this news, it's also popped. Can this continue to move from here? I think that just because Lewis Hamilton's decided to come over to Ferrari, I don't see how anything changes here. I wouldn't chase this. I think that there's going to be a pretty decent correction. I could be wrong, but I'd be very shocked if this sustains or if this stays up here without some sort of correction. So I would avoid Ferrari. If you weren't already in it, then I wouldn't go chasing it here. But what were you going to say about?
I don't think a lot of people are in this. I have literally 2 shares of this just because I want to say I own some Ferrari in my account. So, congrats, made more money. Yeah, I was looking at automotive earlier, and it looked like quite a few were up. They were kind of all taking a ride today. First, they were all red, and then we had this just turnaround, and then just sent it.
Yeah, Ford's up 3%. What's funny is like Ford announced that they were going into Formula One. I believe it's 2025. They'll be in Formula One, but when they announced that, their stock didn't go anywhere. But Formula One racer, greatest of all time, goes into Ferrari and the stock pops. I just don't see how that really translates into it being more valuable.
I think all of 12 people that trade race. I don't think anybody actually trades race. I bet the volume on that is pretty. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't look at the volume, but I would assume the volume on that's super low.
Over the last year, it's gone up 55%, which is crazy. And
it's done well, but it used to not do anything at all. If you zoom out, go to the weekly. I want to say this used to be just incredibly sideways.
And I don't know what's prompted this move over the last year and a half, to be honest with you. Here's your weekly chart. You can kind of see for the better part of a year in 2022 going into 2023, really didn't go anywhere for that entire year after it had that pretty decent correction along with the rest of the market. But since then, it's been just an absolute animal, up over 100% from its lows back in 22. And it's just not stopped since.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's going to be the next Chipotle.
Where it just keeps going for no reason.
Yeah, it just keeps going. It doesn't split. Not incredibly. You'd think for the name Chipotle has, the stock might be more popular, but it's just not. So it sounds weird to say it, but Chipotle is one just, like kind of retail traders are trying to trade. I wonder if this is going to be the next one where, we check it next year and it's going to be $1,500. And it was just that silent one that just kept going up.
Yeah. I mean, look, the growth is actually there. Their revenue growth year over year is at 18.68%. And it's trading. I mean, granted, it's still expensive. I'm still saying that it's not worth chasing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's trading at 47 times next year's earnings and at $62 billion in market cap. You look at something like a Ford, for example, that makes way more money, sells way more units for obvious reasons. That's trading at 6 times next year's earnings, and it's at 46.91 after I just got done telling you that Ferrari's at 62.
But
so go ahead.
So you know who can't afford inflation? Broke people. You know who's not really worried about inflation? Ferrari. For people that are buying Ferraris, and when Ferraris inflate, now I was kind of halfway just making a joke, because luxury stuff is some of the first things to go when things get rough.
Exactly. Yeah, I was about to say that.
If Ferrari's car prices did the same thing a Ford truck did, their margins have got to be killing it on a percentage base. If a Ford truck went from 50 to 70, 80 grand now, so almost double. Now imagine a $300,000 Ferrari. If that just goes up to 600,000, did it just stay the same?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think it necessarily matters a whole lot. I would be surprised if those who are wealthy are just like, oh, inflation's going up, things are costing more. Let me buy more Ferraris. Just don't see how that logic actually makes any sense. But you're right? Like it's not like Ferrari's ever going to be in trouble necessarily unless something really bad happens. But for them to just continue to grow like this is a bit surprising. 20% year over year on a car company that sells cars that cost as much as houses is kind of crazy to see that growth for sure.
I think Ferrari is the only manufacturer that has cars that appreciate instead of depreciate.
Most of them, yeah.
I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Which it doesn't really matter because once that sale is made, it's already been made. So this would have to all be new buyers gambling on the fact that this car would go up.
Yeah, well, and to be fair too, it's not like you just buy a 430 or something like that and that appreciates, because it won't. Right. It has to be a specialty Ferrari. So you have to actually spend a shit ton of money to get some sort of one-off Ferrari for it to actually be worth, quote unquote, investing in. Otherwise, you're still going to lose money on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lord Fender says Ferrari's the car for iPhone users who thinks it makes them look like they know cars. I gotta say,
I think that that's so funny that you say that, because I have thought about that. I think that if you're an iPhone user, you're probably buying a Porsche.
Gosh, I have an iPhone and I'm not going to buy a Porsche. I want to buy a Ferrari, but I have to agree more with Lord Fender's comments. It's just like when you talk to a Ferrari owner, it's like, oh gosh, get out of here. like
if I was going to buy an Italian car though, like an Italian exotic car, it would be a Ferrari over a Lambo, because a Lambo you just look at Lambo owners and they're like, yeah, they all have little wieners.
what's the difference between a Lambo and a Ferrari? Other than I can twin turbo that thing. Can't do
Well,
that to a Ferrari. I can't do
the
anything to a
Lam
Ferrari. We'll
well,
take it
yeah,
back.
but you might as well just buy an Audi R8 if you're just gonna twin
Why would I
turbo
do
it.
that? What if I
Because
want a what if I want a Lamborghini? No, I want a Lamborghini twin turbo. Leave this thing hanging out the back.
yeah, well, that's because you have a little wiener.
I guess, but take a ride in my Lamborghini with 1,200 horsepower.
There's a lot of things you can put up to 1,200 horsepower without spending $400,000 on just the car itself. But that being said, guys, we're here to talk about Apple's earnings. Now, look, it's Don put out a video on Apple recently, kind of talking about whether or not the stock was dead. I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit, but the markets are officially closed, so we'll be reacting to this. I'm actually going to pull over to the 5-minute chart on that so we can get some real-time action on Apple. So we have Apple, Amazon, Meta, all going to be reporting here after hours. And this one's expected. I mean, Apple's the amount of money they bring in per quarter, let alone per year, is still just absolutely mind-blowing. I can't even think about what that number looks like from like a tangible, what does $118 billion look like? But that's what they're expected to bring in this quarter. And $2.10 per share is also expected as far as their earnings per share are concerned. What are your thoughts on Apple here today?
I told my group last night I was going to sell puts. I've just been feeling, maybe it's because the Rona. I've been feeling worthless. I've been like sleeping into like 11 and just barely even up. The reason I was going to sell puts is because of it already had the downturn. So I feel like if they came out and said anything bad, a lot of it might have already been priced in, so it's easier to surprise to the upside.
Yeah.
So looks like it would have been okay. I wouldn't have gone long. After Intel came out, I kind of would have thought the chips were going to do well, and I think Intel kind of surprised me. And same with Microsoft. So I was incredibly bullish Meta Facebook, but I'm not even in Meta earnings. I always play Meta earnings, but didn't even grab that because I was just too. There's something kind of just, and this sounds bad, but it just kind of feels off. And I don't know if it's because I have a bearish bias, because I think with the market might correct or pull back. I don't want to be buying up here at the peak. At some point you have to just do something. You can't just sit around. But I gotta say I'm neutral on probably most of these earnings, because if they come out with something good, I feel like there might be a Microsoft reaction where it still sells off.
I agree. I think that, we've gotten to a point with a lot of these tech stocks, because they did so well last year, that they're going to have to come up with something super crazy good for them to go nuts. It's not good enough for them to just beat earnings and come in line with guidance. They have to like really do something special. And we obviously didn't see that with Microsoft. We looked through those earnings and they weren't bad at all. I mean, they beat earnings pretty handily, but everybody knew that was going to happen. And so when you're not surprised by anything, you're probably not going to get much of a reaction one way or the other. So
go ahead. I would say it sounds like Amazon might be surprising. And people are saying Amazon's going nuts. It's in my chat saying it's
there. It is. Yeah. Amazon's up 4.5%. So I saw the little pop on Apple and I was like, that doesn't look like an Apple reaction, but I guess it was reacting to what Amazon was doing here. Yeah, that stock's up 4.5% right now. Let's see here. Expected earnings per share on that were 80 cents a share, $166.26 billion. Tons of upward revisions on that from the street. And it's obviously looking pretty good so far. Let's see what I can get you on the actual earnings per share here. Looks like they came in. Earnings came in at $1 per share, $1 flat. So they came in 20 cents above expectations. Revenue of $170 billion. They beat that expectation by nearly $4 billion. So pretty solid beat there too. North America segment sales increased 13% year over year to $105.5 billion. International segment sales increased 17% year over year to $40.2 billion, or increased 13% excluding changes in foreign exchange rates, which has also been a good thing too. Like with the dollar weakening, this has certainly helped a lot of tech stocks as well. AWS increased 13% year over year. That alone is bringing in $24.2 billion. Guidance here, obviously the big thing that everybody's looking at. Net sales are expected to be between 138 and 143 billion, versus the 142 that was expected. So not blowing anybody's doors off with guidance, but it's on the higher end. They're expecting that to grow between 8 and 13%. Guidance anticipates a favorable impact, approximately 40 basis points from foreign exchange rates. Again, that dollar coming down a little bit. Operating income is expected to be between 8 and 12 billion, compared with 4.8 billion in the first quarter. Guidance includes approximately $1 billion lower depreciation expense. So things are looking better as far as how the dollar and the exchange rates have affected these stocks. Like that's something that we have been talking about for a while now, on tech in general, and how exchange rates have negatively impacted them. But it seems as if that's starting to soften up a little bit.
And there goes Meta. Meta's doing the same thing.
Tune in the Meta right now. That is up 4%. We're going to come back, guys, and kind of explain what all this means to you. If you are an investor of Meta, or you're looking to make some sort of trade on either that or Amazon or Apple, what have you, we're going to go back and kind of like go through these earnings again. We're going to look at the charts and see, hey, where's the opportunity? Where can we see this go? That sort of thing. So make sure you're staying tuned. Also, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you guys are liking the stream so far, we certainly appreciate it. And yeah, man, Meta's still going. It's now up 6%. Still climbing here.
Yeah, I know it's a shoulda, woulda, coulda. I wish I would have bought calls on this.
I was just about to say, this is the quarter you said you were going to stay away, and then here it goes.
Yeah, I know, and I'm always in this too. That sucks. It's cool. I mean, I have 1 million shares, so it's cool for it to go up like this.
You don't really have 1 million shares, do you?
No, not quite. No, I'm just kidding. I have a couple less.
Just a little less than 1 million. Okay. I'm just looking to see. So it looks like they came in at, wow, $5.33 versus the $4.83 that was expected, and over $1 billion more in revenue that was expected. So they came in at 40.1 billion versus the 39 billion that was expected. And then again, just to reiterate, the big deal here is profitability went through the roof. $5.33 a share is what they earned versus the 43 that was expected from the street. So this is something that we were actually talking about. I know right before these earnings came out, Don and I said that we were very cautious, but I also saying that like they have to exceed expectations far and beyond what people are hoping, because that's what's going to get the stock moving. And that profitability from Meta Platforms is huge.
Wait, Scott, are you trolling us, or is that real? Meta declares a dividend?
I can confirm that for you.
That's an earnings win for me right there. It's for my shares.
Probably another reason, obviously, why. And again, another reason why, like, you're going to surprise investors with that. That's what's going to get it moving. If that is the case, I do want to
wow,
confirm
Meta
that
is.
Yeah, they did announce a dividend of 50 cents per share.
One time or going forward?
It doesn't say. I'm not finding that out yet.
Yeah, so is it a special dividend or?
X is going bananas, so I'm just trying to make sure that I got my facts straight before I just blurt it out.
Oh, I bet. Of course, the one time I skip Meta earnings, this is.
But at least you have it, right? Like that's
yeah, I know, but still.
Yeah. So they initiate a quarterly dividend. There you go. So this is according to Seeking Alpha. They beat earnings per share by 39 cents, coming at 5.33, which again is an amazing beat. So on top of the dividend, they also just crushed earnings. Revenue came in at 40.1 billion. They beat by 940 million. Initiates a quarterly dividend of 50 cents per share. Revenue was up 25% year on year. This is a company that everybody like threw out in the fucking doghouse. Everybody thought that this was just gonna fade away, and they just keep crushing it, bro. Obviously Facebook is something that a lot of people, especially the younger crowd, has kind of gone away from, but they're still the best. If you're building a small business and you need digital advertising, it's still the best per dollar that you're going to spend. And it seems as if they're still growing that side of things. They expect first quarter 2024 total revenue to be in the range of 30.5 to $37 billion versus the 33 that was expected. So outside of what we saw from Amazon and Microsoft, they came in well above expectations on guidance too, about $1 billion worth. So there's that. The Meta board of directors declared a cash dividend of 50 cents per share of outstanding common stock, and that includes Class A and Class B shares, payable on March 26, 2024, to stockholders as of record as of the close of business on February 22nd, 2024. And that will continue on a quarterly basis, again, according to Seeking Alpha. That is why Meta is going bananas. The stock is now up 9% here after hours.
Savvy does bring up a good point. Remember that one time spending that money on the metaverse was going to bankrupt them?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it was what Mark Zuckerberg said, $10 billion is what he was going to initially invest on that over, I think it was a 10-year span. So essentially $1 billion a year on the metaverse. But they got so many other things going on. Oculus, the advances that they've made on Oculus is honestly pretty awesome, just from the stuff that I've seen. I'm not a tech wizard, guys, but like just as a consumer, it's pretty cool shit.
Well, did you see the guy working on his car with the Meta goggles?
No.
I shared it in the chat. So he's got his Meta. Now it's mixed reality. So he's got the hood up on his car. He's looking at the hood. He's got a YouTube. He's got 3 windows up in front of him. I forget what the left one is. The middle one is a YouTube video of a guy fixing this part. And on the right, it's like a forum of people talking about how to fix it. So he's got that up real time while he's looking under the hood of his car. Just got the windows floating there.
Yeah.
Like usability, that's going to be, because it's, if you've ever worked on a car, had to figure it out, you are YouTubing videos, you got to pause, you got to look at it, and then having that just right next to you as you're looking, not on a tiny phone, but you can make that screen 100 inches if you want.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I am gonna have to sell some call spreads on this. Looks like some 450s.
So there you go. Explain to the our audience what exactly you're doing here.
Well, zoom down just a little bit so I can see that top line, the top gray dash line. So that's 2 standard deviations. Looks like it's gonna be right at 451. Yeah. So 99% chance we stay underneath that. And kind of where we're at, we either rein it back in, get under 422, or market makers have to start delta hedging, and it could send it right up there to 450, 451 to match anybody buying. And what delta hedging is for anybody FOMOing right now, and let's say tomorrow they buy a call. Everybody knows to buy a call. They buy a call at the money. They're 50 deltas. The market maker that now made that deal is now negative 50 deltas. So he has to buy 50 shares to offset that. So they are a neutral delta. That's their job, just to stay neutral. So when people start to chase stuff like this, market makers have to start buying a bunch of shares, and you get this vacuum up. But they price all this in at the beginning of the week in a deviation rate, because it's not just a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So we're outside 1 standard deviation. 2 standard deviations is a 95% chance we stay under. And 3 standard deviations is 99% chance we stay under. But I do like to sell 2 standard deviation stuff, especially after we rip up like this. Which actually at this point might even be worth it for me to sell some 465, 470. So I'm well outside that. And since it's when you sell options, you wait for the move to happen and then you react versus trying to time the move before.
Right.
And since I missed this and I still want to take advantage of it, if we actually hold right here, I do want to sell. So I'll sell a call spread 465, 470 on it.
So there you have it. We'll get back to this in just a moment. I did want to return back to Amazon. We did react to these earnings first. They came in, and as they're sitting up another 3.5% after already being up 3% on the day. They came in and had really good earnings as well. If you guys didn't catch those numbers, they came in at $1 per share, $1 even, versus the 80 cents that was expected. $170 billion in revenue. They beat that expectation by $3.74 billion. So nearly $4 million beat there as well. Guidance came in on the high side. They didn't go above guidance. They were still within that range that they originally said that they wanted to be in. That was 138 to 143 billion versus the 142 that was expected. So kind of, still within that range. But still trying to figure out why we saw this sudden movement on Amazon. Obviously, it was a great quarter. But to what we've spoken about earlier, this doesn't seem to be any different, at least in my opinion, than what we saw from Microsoft. Microsoft, we got kind of a negative, almost no reaction from that. Checking in on Apple. This will be the last one. Apple always takes forever for their earnings to come out. Probably it'll be around 4:30, I would imagine. So any sort of movement here is probably just reacting from I would guess probably Amazon, maybe Meta, but probably not. More so Amazon would guess.
At this point, I mean, why wouldn't Apple follow suit?
I mean, yeah.
Kind of come with
let's just go 3 for 3 here today. But the big story, obviously, is Meta Platforms. They came in, crushed earnings, and then also crushed guidance. They're projecting $1 billion more than what the street was projecting in revenue for the current quarter that we are in. And it's up 11.5%. They also announced a 50-cent dividend, 50 cents per share, quarterly dividend. They're going to start initiating, and obviously investors are loving that. So stock is up pretty nicely here.
Yeah, I wonder if they priced in or not. Because one thing I want to say Mike Hudson brought it up was talking about political ads and it being an election year. So would ad revenue, how much would ad revenue go up because of that? And then here we talk about how they're killing it and ad space being one of them. I wonder if that's been talked about, priced in, or even added in. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know if that necessarily. I thought that Meta was kind of staying away from most of that. No,
they said they're going to stay neutral. They're going to let people do everything. Like everyone else is like, we only want one side or the other. Meta was like, you guys can all fight it out.
I thought they were not allowing any political ads whatsoever, but maybe I was wrong on that.
Maybe I am getting confused, but I'm pretty sure they were the ones that said, if I'm right, and someone could probably correct me, I thought they were the ones that said, we're going to take your money. You guys can just figure it out yourselves. We're just going to remain a platform and stay neutral.
Okay. I'll tell you what, though. Did you see, was it yesterday that Mark Zuckerberg was in Congress about the whole child trafficking thing?
No. What's up with that?
He was, I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. And if you guys in the chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was basically testifying because, Meta was, and Facebook in particular, was kind of caught up into some child trafficking stuff. People were obviously on there not doing great things, and it somehow slipped through the cracks. And obviously, Mark Zuckerberg had to answer for that. Obviously not good for Meta, not good for anybody, but whoever was kind of grilling him as far as the senator or the Congress was concerned, basically asked him told him that he needed to apologize to people who were affected by it. And there was obviously family and people who were impacted by this. And he actually stood up and apologized to him, which you can say what you want about Mark. You can think he's an asshole. You can think he's this, that, and the third, but I haven't seen one tech giant do anything like that, to just stand up and apologize for allowing something like that to happen. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm his biggest fan either, but like to do that, thought that it was a pretty respectable moment for the CEO of Meta.
Yeah, that is. I think they shouldn't have made it. They probably should just let it go on and then not tell anybody Meta's how they caught him, and then burn everybody down.
Right.
I mean, I'm on the side of, if it's going to happen, it's probably going to, like, Meta was probably not the make or break on that. There's just bad people out there, and they're going to just probably not stop at Facebook Messenger. If anything, that's how they helped. Meta would help get them caught. Like, why would you want it on some other app versus Meta?
Well, and I do want to address this comment here because I think it's worth just chatting about as we're waiting on Apple's earnings, and we'll recap Amazon and Meta in just a second. But Just Scott says everyone on the planet would have hated him if he didn't, and that might be true, but it didn't stop the deans of Harvard and Yale and other Ivy League schools to not denounce anti-Semitism, right? So, like, when they were asked point blank, they still dug their heels in, and instead of Mark Zuckerberg pretty much doing the same, he at least stood up and actually did it, and turned around and actually did it. So look, I'm not saying, not even really defending him. I'm just saying that, like, I just thought it was kind of a cool moment, I guess, to at
Yeah.
least acknowledge it.
And anytime somebody does something, there's always somebody like, "Oh, you did it for this," like kind of damned if
Yeah,
you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Like,
right,
yeah, that's kind of jumping on the who knows the what if game.
right. I pulled
I,
Nvidia up because Nvidia was moving on some of this news. It's only up around a 0.5%, already up 2.5 on the day. But I was wondering if maybe it was reacting because of Meta and increased demand for like AI and stuff. And obviously that's going to positively impact a company like Nvidia. But I haven't seen anything yet on that.
yeah, he made some statements the other day that he was going to like. He said Meta is going to be the one that builds the AGI. Like
Oh,
it's
so they're not going to rely on like an Nvidia for that.
oh, they might use. I was thinking like Nvidia processing. They just say their company Meta is going to be the one that comes up with the artificial general intelligence. Like, and
Yeah,
that's what
actually, that was
the
reported. I see a report here at around noontime from Seeking Alpha. It says Meta said they're going to use custom in-house chips for AI.
hmm,
Um, going to use some custom processors that has created in-house as it continues to build its artificial intelligence capability. So I guess yeah, they're trying not to rely on third-party chip makers. Chips are going to production later this year and will be used in its data centers, according to Reuters, citing an internal memo. The chips will work with other GPUs that Meta already buys from third parties, and a company spokesman told the news outlet. So this kind of feels a little bit like what Apple did with their M1 chips.
hmm.
That's
Yeah. Well, we're
interesting. I
seeing a
didn't know.
lot of
I didn't know
the.
that.
This is why I was just bullish over chips in general because we're seeing a lot of companies say like it used to be like, "Hey, we're buying Nvidia chips," and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Nvidia's the champ." But Nvidia couldn't even touch the surface, couldn't even scratch the surface of the demand, and now everyone's just saying, "Hey, we need this processing power regardless." Like
Right.
they're taking it where they can get it.
And take AI out of it. Like they're still
Mhm.
like data centers are just overwhelmed right now. And they're not even close to being caught up on demand just for data centers alone.
Yeah, I got it. There's a couple people in the chat, and we got Karim in here. Said, "I remember Meta was $85 when you two were doing a live show in November. What a move!" People are saying, "My definitely my worst move. Never jumping on the Meta train." Yeah, I mean, there's a reason it's my number one position.
I tell you, we were pounding the table on that back in late 2022 and all of 23. We had talked about it. After it went from what $330 all the way down to that $85 mark.
Yeah, that
So
stinks.
appreciate you remembering that, Karem. But yeah, it was good to see that like this is one. I mean, there was a lot of things that we got right last year, but this was one that I
Mhm.
think probably the biggest one we hit out of the park.
Yeah, yeah.
And
This one seems like such an obvious play, though.
yeah,
Like
it does.
it's even way past the it's too obvious. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's too obvious. You're just waiting for a bank to come in and just destroy you. This one's even like past that. The Meta is such a cash cow. It's no
It is.
surprise that more investors own it than retail. Retail calls this, only old people are on Meta. They spend their time worrying about dumb stuff.
Yeah, except
Yeah,
it's so much more than that.
yeah,
It's more than just Facebook. Literally everybody's on Instagram. It doesn't matter. I don't think there's really an age, too much of an age gap. Yes, I would say that there's more boomers and older millennials and Gen Xers on Facebook over Instagram. But if you have Facebook, the beauty of that is the chances are you got an Instagram too.
hmm,
And Reels, I would argue, is starting to really come after TikTok. I don't have those hard numbers yet, but I'd be curious to see what they are on short
uh,
form content.
TikTok's got something going on right now with the music industry. They're pulling off all the major artists. They didn't sign a deal with them.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
Taylor Swift, all the big ones. It's a three-letter company that has all the big artists in there. Anyway, they didn't sign an agreement, so they're getting all their music pulled off TikTok.
All the copyright and everything.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I was wondering how they were getting away with that because YouTube, anytime, even if you have music playing in the background that you didn't even realize was on,
Yeah.
YouTube catches it and demonetizes your shit. So like, I always wondered how TikTok was getting away with that. And I guess maybe they weren't.
No, I think that it just like how YouTube now has a licenses agreement where if we have
Right.
that music on, part of the ad revenue goes to them.
Yeah.
I think TikTok had something like that, and people just weren't. Yeah, Sean says it. Universal. What are the other two words? Universal something. UG. I want to say UGA. I don't know.
That's
Anyway,
University of Georgia.
no. But yeah, it's the deal with Universal. They didn't sign one, and so all the artists on there, you probably know all the Universal Music Group. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, they're all going off of there. Unless something changes, as of right now, they're pulling all that music.
Yeah. I thought I saw Lord Fenrir say, yeah, Meta is building a huge center in southern Indiana, just broke ground on it. Yeah, there's a giant one here in North Carolina too. They got them everywhere. I want to say they got one out by you too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Google and Meta just put up big data centers out here.
And that, they're just going to keep building them because demand is just, I bet you they already have those buildings filled up.
Yeah.
With servers. Like they already have that maxed out and they're looking for the next one to build.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Now I get to be surprised about my 50-cent dividend.
Yeah, really. And that's why Meta has moved. Apple's up around 1% right now. It doesn't look like that's moved on anything. I think those earnings will be out probably any minute. Let me just double check.
But that has to be more just moving with the tech in general. Well, while you're checking, pull up QQQ.
Okay.
Let's just see what that's done to tech in general.
It's a little all over the place, but it's up.
That might have been options.
About 1%. Just about.
You would mention Taylor, you KC fan.
Amazon is up. That's still climbing here. Pretty decent jump after we saw the initial pop of around 3% and is now up 5.5% here. If you guys didn't catch those numbers, Amazon came in at $1 per share. The expectation there was 80 cents. So pretty solid beat. $170 billion. They beat that expectation by nearly $4 billion. Guidance came in line, but kind of on the high side of what expectations were. And that's why the stock appears to be moving. I would still say that it's a bit expensive at 60 times next year's earnings. It just doesn't feel right chasing after this stuff. I mean, look, I'm not saying that it can't keep going, but the risk reward just doesn't seem worth it here to me. We talked a little bit about that on Tuesday as well, about how oh shoot, what was reporting? There's a lot of stuff reporting. Starbucks and a lot of other tech stocks are reporting, AMD and a bunch of other ones. And some of them did well. Microsoft was one of them that didn't. And so kind of didn't surprise me with the move. But these so far today, doing really well.
It's not doing really well? The calls that I didn't buy. That's not doing well. Damani says short squeeze tomorrow. If anybody is short these tickers, yeah, you'll probably see. You can see something like that. It's hard to say there's going to be a short squeeze on QQQ, but individual tickers, anybody that was short Meta is probably not going to like that. That might fuel to some continuation.
Maybe, but I mean, Amazon's only being shorted less than 1%.
Yeah,
Amazon's being shorted. Amazon, a couple other numbers here. Seattle-based e-commerce giant reported total revenue in North America in Q4 was up 13% to 105.5 versus 102 that was expected. That's $1 billion. While international revenue was 17% higher to 40.2 versus $39 billion. Total revenue was 170 versus 166 that was expected. As I had mentioned earlier, the cloud business was strong again, and AWS revenue came in at 24.2 versus a 24.22 consensus. So a little bit of a miss, but not by much. We'll just call it in line on AWS. Operating income was reported at 13.2 billion in comparison to consensus market of 10.49. Another huge beat on that. So really, profitability is what's moving this stock up. And no real talks of slowdown in demand. It's either it's in line or it's increasing still.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, Don, because we are seeing inflation come down.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it in your opinion, does it have to be the global sales that's pumping these numbers up? Because I would imagine that if it was just US, and we've already seen sightings of they've cited that the dollar coming down has certainly helped their bottom line as well. I would imagine that probably has the larger impact versus demand here in the US.
I would say it has something to do with it, but I'm also starting to wonder how much of it is a narrative that we've just taken on, just in general, because it really did kind of feel like things might be bearish. You hear a lot of people complaining about things going up, but then you just see reports of everybody's just buying, and I'm trying to figure out where's the disconnect here. Is
Yeah.
it just everybody globally, or is everybody just complaining because they love to complain and they're just stacking on debt? We know people love to just do that.
Yeah.
But how do
People have been doing that forever though too.
yeah. Looks like
Apple
Android might
does
be
seem to
better.
be moving. Let's see here.
Good, at least one red reaction. Dismiss me loves company. I'm just upset that I'm not in meta calls right now.
Couldn't possibly be 3 for 3.
But honestly, like I said earlier, Apple has sold off a decent amount. So even if they came in and said something rough, I kind of expect not to call the bottom already in, but pretty close. I wouldn't expect much of a sell off. I mean, if you just pull back a little bit and look at the last few days and see how much it's already sold off.
Yes.
I think it'd be easier for Apple to surprise to the upside than to the downside as far as a price action movement.
Yeah, and their numbers are in, so to probably no one's surprise, they came in at $2.18 versus the $2.11 that was expected. They also came in at 119.58 billion versus 117.97 that was expected. So they came in and beat revenue by about $1.5 billion, and then also beat on earnings per share. But Apple always does that, so I don't know if that should be any sort of reason for the stock to move. If you had invested $10,000 in Apple in 2016, it would be worth roughly $77,000 today.
Whew. You invested how much in Apple?
10 grand in 2016. It'd be worth nearly 80 grand today, 8 years later.
Well, let's do that same math with Meta.
Yeah.
10 grand. What was it, 2016?
Yeah, this is just a little snippet that I saw on X. 2016.
Let me just see where.
Yeah, you know what? I bet you with Meta, you probably make more since 2016.
Yeah, January of 2016, we were at $112. So what? 10 grand? What you said?
Mm-hmm.
To get are we doing
yeah, you have to
dollar amount, or how many shares could I buy with that? Because you could buy about 89 shares with that. What's Meta at right now?
Meta is at let's see here, 450. So I don't
40 grand. Yeah, Apple's gone up way more.
Yep. Sure has.
It just seems like now, just because I guess because the 450 price point.
Is 2016 when Warren Buffett finally bought it?
No, I think Warren's been in Apple for a while.
Well, 8 years is a while, but I thought that he refused to buy anything tech related, and then it was like a big deal when he bought Apple. I want to say it was probably around there. It was post 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody look that up.
Karim says Don hates Apple. That'd be the first time anyone's ever said that on either channel.
Yeah. Nobody hates Apple. It's a cash machine between that and Microsoft. Apple, as I'd mentioned, came in at $2.18, beat expectations by 7 cents. Revenue of 119.6 billion. They beat the 1.34 estimate, so they came in about $1.5 billion better than what was expected. Revenue was 2.1% higher year over year. For Apple, that's decent. Not the greatest, but decent. Net sales by category. The biggest winner for them this quarter, man, looks actually like the biggest loser was iPad, down 25% year over year. I guess people ain't buying iPads anymore.
What are they buying?
I don't know. It doesn't look services. And man, I've been talking about this forever. The services side of their business is honestly what's keeping them afloat, because Mac only went up. So let me just start from the beginning. iPhone went up 6% year over year in sales, not really blowing anybody's doors off. And I would say that iPhone actually is the biggest winner when it comes to hardware. Mac up 0.5% year over year. iPad down 25% year over year. Wearables, home and accessories down 11.5% year over year. This isn't necessarily great, but the services is up 11.5%. So obviously the biggest winner there is the services, and it's starting to really take over the bulk of their revenue outside of iPhone sales. iPhone sales is just, it's $70 billion is their iPhone sales. But services is really starting to make some headway. $23 billion. So between the iPhone and their services category, over $100 billion in revenue. But everything else sucks as far as sales are concerned.
What do people buy iPads for anyway?
I mean, same reason they would buy like a tablet for, work or whatever.
Because I have the Pro. I use that for work. Like I use like a laptop.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, what do people do? Like, what do people buy a regular iPad for?
Give it to their kids to watch.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what my kids watch on. But I'm trying to think, what would drive that to really, really go crazy?
I don't know, but for it to be down 25% year on year is crazy, I think.
Looks like people figured it out. They didn't use the iPad they have, so they don't need to replace the one.
They didn't release an iPad last year, but the new one comes out this spring. Maybe something to do with that. That could be. I did not know that, Shock City Rocker. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. Could be.
What do you think about the Vision Pro versus the Meta?
I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really have an opinion, to be honest with you. I would, if I had to guess, I would say that Oculus is still superior to whatever Vision Pro is going to have, if I had to guess, only because Meta's been working on this far longer than Apple has. And that doesn't always matter. But we have seen that just because Apple doesn't have the best tech doesn't mean that they won't sell the shit out of it, because first and foremost, they know how to market better than anybody else.
Yeah. So, but the price point from $600 to almost $5,000 by the time you get everything.
Is that what the Vision is?
Yeah, well, it's like 3,500, but you quickly get into the fours because there's something else you got to get for it. Don't you have to buy a separate battery pack or like actually, it's just like everything else. Like the phone, it just comes with that now, and you got to buy everything to actually make it functional. They'd be the one Apple probably would be the one company to sell a car without the wheels. You got to buy that separate.
Right.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure if you add tax and everything, you're for sure in the fours.
Yeah.
So you're close to 10 times the amount.
Darrell Reed asks. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, no, I say, are you getting 10 times the amount of performance or what?
Yeah, I would not be. I would doubt that. But looking at what their Reed says, didn't they sell out of their first 200,000 pre-orders? I don't hold much in their pre-orders. We see this all the time. There's a lot of folks out there that'll pre-order something and then never actually buy it. So I don't think that I would put too much in that basket. But maybe they did. I actually don't know if they did. It wouldn't surprise me if they sold out in their first 200,000 in pre-orders, but I would be surprised if there's 200,000 people that are willing to pay $5,000 for a Vision Pro. I could be wrong.
With Apple's client base, $200,000 or 200,000 orders is nothing. Imagine they only sold 200,000 iPhones.
Well, sure. I'm just saying, like, iPhones aren't $5,000, so that's
Not
I
yet.
guess yeah, not yet. Right. What's their most expensive one? Like $2,000, 1,800, something like that.
Yeah, it's 1,200, something like that. But I'm saying, like, I would like hearing that they sold 200,000 pre-orders, even if everyone came through and bought it, because Apple does have that borderline, if not full blown cult following. They have to have the Apple stuff. They just collect it,
Yeah.
they have to say they have it.
Yep.
200,000 is literally nothing to Apple, I think.
Yeah. How much of owning an Apple product is just about status?
I'd say there's a fair amount. There's a reason that's like what Android people love to make fun of. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
just made up because they were just sad one day. Like there's, I'm sure there's that it stems from something.
Mac Pro wheels as an option were $400. That's stupid. That's crazy. All right, guys. So as you can see, Apple in the red here, and one of the big reasons I think in particular is that there wasn't anything that shocked anybody here. Everybody knows that Apple's beats earnings every earnings season for the most part. I think they missed it once or twice in the last 20 years. So I honestly think, and this is just me speculating, I have no proof of this, but when you look at the hardware, not good. The only hardware that they're selling that is actually doing well is their iPhone sales, and that's only 6% year on year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, because they sell so many that you're not going to see some astronomical 25% number, but everything else is negative in growth, except for the Mac that comes in flat. So I just wouldn't be too excited about Apple here right now, unless they have something great to say about their services. That being said, it's just in the short term. We all know that Apple, something at least that I like to tell people, and I'm not the first one to come up with this, that you just buy Apple. You can trade it, sure, but if you just bought it and held on to it, we just got done telling you, if you had 10 grand in it on 2016, you're up nearly $80,000. So taking a look at the daily, you can kind of see that it's at 183.49 in after hours. The top of that zone, Don, looking like it's around 183 right now. So it could settle in the top of that zone, and maybe that's where we see it bottom out. What do you think?
I think so. And to answer Daryl's question, he says, would or did you sell puts? I really entertained the idea. Just, I don't know. Again, this might just be me personally. I think someone said I have a lingering, COVID symptoms. I am just dead to the world. But yeah, even now, after a red earning, I would sell the 180 puts.
Yeah.
I'd sell the 180 puts. If for some reason I got assigned, I could just start selling the 180 calls or just even keep the shares. Apple would be an easy one to sell the 180 puts on and just kind of collect some money off of on that. As far as Meta goes, I already talked about selling Meta calls. The way it just continues to push, I think that might just be a little too spicy unless we're going 3 standard deviations out. It just might not be worth. Sometimes just not worth going up. What you're going to put up to get it just might not be worth it. Because there might be an overreaction and it sells back off. But if it just continues up, like when Costco did the special dividend, you're going to get ran over and it won't be worth it. And it certainly probably isn't the best idea to go buying it right now to chase it, because you're asking for some risk there.
Yeah, it's actually up over that standard deviation that you pointed out earlier, sitting at 452.50. It's now up nearly 15%. What a crazy move for Meta. If you guys didn't catch the news, not only did they beat earnings and crushed earnings expectations in the future, so their guidance was also good. Meta also announced a 50-cent dividend that's going to now take place every quarter. And so one of the big reasons why we're seeing such a move on that, obviously lots of good things with their earnings, but then that dividend was the icing on the cake.
Yeah. And anybody trading this is now the institutions and the market makers are now involved. Yeah, so now there's 3 players on this field where things could get volatile. Things Meta could see some movements sharply up or down. So I'd be careful trading it for the next couple of days. Put it that way. Well, Amazon got the memo, I guess.
Yeah, and then there's Amazon that just continues to go up here too. It got off to a slow start, but it's really starting to pick up here in after hours trading. They came in and beat earnings too. I wouldn't say that it blew anybody away, and in particular, the Azure side of their business came in line, so it um, didn't really do much there as far as
I think they're just
AWS.
selling Meta shares on Amazon now.
They gotta be.
Must be what they announced.
They expect, as I'd mentioned, they expect 138 to 143.5 billion dollars versus the 142 that was expected. So on the higher side, but still in line with expectations. Operating income came in 8 to 12 billion versus the 9.2, so right in the middle there too. They weren't. I don't know what's going on here as far as why the stock is up so much, because when we look at the earnings, yeah, they were good, but I wouldn't say that they were that good. So kind of interesting to see that. I would be hesitant to go chasing here on Amazon as well.
Two things. Krim is saying February 16th, 180 calls gets IV crush. We talking about Amazon out of the money or Apple in the money? Usually he's an out of the money guy, so I would think Amazon. And yeah, I would say those are going to get absolutely decimated.
Yeah.
They'll both take a hit. One, Apple's down. Amazon's just not up enough. So the 180 calls for both. Oh, he's talking about Amazon? Yeah, those will be worthless.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I do kind of want your take on this right here. So Win says, talk about Bitcoin, Mara, and Bitcoin related stocks because we're getting close to the halving. What are your thoughts? We haven't talked about that. What are your thoughts?
Halving is this year, correct?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. We always kind of see a run up into the halving. I haven't really paid attention to so funny. It says crypto cap. I thought that said crypto crap, which is pretty hilarious. I would say, look, Bitcoin's another one oh, this isn't Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one that I would say that it's just going to continue to remain volatile. But we've talked about this all the way back in late 2022 as well, that we were going to see a huge move going into the halving here. If you're trying to just make a simple trade on it, I would be careful just because it has gone up so much. If you're in Bitcoin and you've been in Bitcoin, especially in 2022, I would say that you're in great shape. I wouldn't worry about it too much. We go back out to the weekly and you can kind of see just how far it's come. I mean, my gosh, I remember we were talking about this at 15,000 not that long ago. Back when we were talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, and that's kind of really what I would say. That's what was a capitulatory moment, was when all that took place, because ever since then it's just been on fire. So it's up 200% since then, and that's just in a little bit over a year. So I would say if you're looking to trade this, be cautious. If you're looking to invest in it and just keep dollar cost averaging, you're gonna be just fine. And going into the halving, we've seen this kind of pop off and do some pretty crazy things. So if you're in it and you've been in it, just I would say hang on for the ride and enjoy it, because it's probably going to keep going up. But and I mean, shit, we've been even hearing some rumors flying around about 100K on Bitcoin this year. We thought that was going to happen the last time it made a run up, and obviously it didn't. But certainly feels like it could this time around.
Now, here's what I want everybody to do, because everyone was all about how much you would have made if you bought $10,000 worth of Apple in 2016. Now buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. Yeah, we'll even give it a year. We'll call it 2017, and then see how much you'd have.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. It's been averaging 200% year on year since inception.
Yeah, and I know everyone loves this. Is usually someone says or it's James. I'm in Beto, not the actual coin. If you're in like a retirement account that can't buy Bitcoin, I would say the BlackRock ETF would be the one I would get in. But I gotta say, buying the actual coin is not as confusing as many people think. And I would say just put the 10 minutes worth of research in, because I think I think it'll be a lot better to have the coin than it is the ETF. It is the actual coin. So there's no like the ETF it's going to play catch up. It's going to track it after about a year. Once they get everything dialed in, it should track pretty closely. But let's say you want to jump into the mentorship or anything like that. You can literally go on Robinhood, buy Bitcoin, and you can send it to me like you're sending money on PayPal. You can't just transfer me some shares over. It would take forever. There's a lot of benefits to just having the coin itself. So I would just say, check that out. At least just look into that. But yeah, my thoughts would be the BlackRock one, BITO.
Yeah. I would probably avoid something like Mara, only because they're the ones that get even more volatile as volatile as Bitcoin is. They get crushed even harder. So if you're worried about risk or you're kind of on the risk averse side, but you want to get into crypto, just buy Bitcoin.
Mara and Riot, those are Bitcoin hype tickers. Bitcoin could be on a steady climb up, and those things just stay flat. The second Bitcoin is getting talked about, just on Facebook and everywhere, when the Bitcoin hype comes in, then you see those, the miners is what those are, start to really liven up. So I think a lot of momentum traders love that. Traders think they're awesome. As far as something to hold, I would steer just to the coin itself.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. I got another show to prepare in about an hour, so I got to get going. But you guys have been great. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you are watching over on Don's channel, make sure you make your way over to the Power Zone, where Don and I are both going to be creating content from in the very near future. So if you are used to watching Don talking about stocks on the regular, it's not going to happen on his channel here very shortly. So you're going to want to make your way over to the Power Zone, aka Own the Chaos. If you search Own the Chaos, it'll still pop up. So make sure you guys are doing that. We don't want you to get in a spot where you're like, well, what the hell's going on? Try to move everybody over. So make sure that you guys are doing that. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We're just getting started with earnings season. These are the big dogs. These are the big companies that reported this week, but there's so much more happening next week, and I can't wait to get started on that. So, guys, make sure you're tuning in. Hit that notification bell. We'll be back at 3:45 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, maybe Monday or Tuesday. All right. See you guys.
Have a good one.